switches.
Yeah, so I'll be monitoring the waiting room in case we have any late stragglers. But okay, so welcome everyone. For those of you who have been to one of these programs with me before, welcome back. But for those of you who I have not met, my name is Siri Nefhem. I am the Visitor Services Manager at the Delaware Historical Society. I work in education as well, so we've been helping Kim with these Zoom into History programs, which has been a lot of fun. Just to go over a few ground rules, if this is your first time tuning in, we will be asking you all to keep your video turned off and yourselves muted just during the length of the presentation. So as Kobe is presenting to you, we would like to have a minimal amount of talking and little faces popping up on the top of the screen. But once he is finished with the presentation, we will invite you to then turn your cameras on if you are comfortable and then mute yourself. And then that'll be the opportunity for you to ask any questions, make any comments, or just take part in a generally great discussion with Kobe. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and I'll pass it on to Kim now, and then I'll ask you to turn off your videos right before the presentation begins. So Kim?
Thank you all for joining us. Such a cold, windy afternoon. I'm glad we can do it on Zoom. Usually we do talks on the terrace, and actually, when we did it the first time with Michelle and there's Dr. O'Donnell, the head of the DAR chapter, but we had Abdullah speak, and it was just beautiful out back. So next time when you come, you can take his place. So Kobe is a fairly new staff person from the Delaware Historical Society, and we're very lucky to have him. He's pretty knowledgeable, and he knows a lot of people, and he's done a lot of hard work on this. So we'll get started, and if more people turn on, okay, they do. But I guess you can turn off your own pictures now, and then we'll just have his PowerPoint and Kobe mostly. So go ahead. You want to better introduce yourself, I think you should.
Okay, so thank you for that wonderful introduction. My name is Kobe Baker. I am the outreach coordinator for the Jane and Littleton Mitchell Center for African American Heritage at the Delaware Historical Society. I am a graduate of the University of Delaware. I graduated and majored in Africana Studies and Anthropology. So I'm really excited for this presentation. I'm really excited to have you guys here. And this is my first time presenting this via Zoom. So I'm excited about this. I will let you guys know that there will be multimedia aspects in the presentation. And so there's going to be video shown in the presentation. And sometimes, like when I'm presenting the presentation and I click the videos, it kind of messes up the presentation a little bit, but it's easily fixable. So just bear with me if there's a little pause. Okay, so let me get started. Okay. I'm just going to share my screen. Okay. And presentation. Okay. There we go. Okay. Okay, there we go. So thank you for joining me for this presentation on the Mitchell Center, the Jane Littleton Mitchell Center for African American Heritage. So I like to, we have a little catchphrase that says, what will your journey to freedom look like? And that is because our key exhibition is called Journey to Freedom. And so Journey to Freedom has different stories of the African American experience in Delaware. So we like to ask you, what would your journey to freedom look like? So our mission. So the purpose of the Mitchell Center for African American Heritage is to collect, preserve, research, and present for public enrichment the history and heritage of Delaware's African Americans. So we do, so that includes a lot of the things that I'm like, well, what I'm doing now is presenting on the Mitchell Center and presenting on African American history, and also we collect African American history in Delaware. We have collections, and we also have we host programs, which you'll learn more in this presentation. So for those of you who do not know, the Mitchell Center is located on 505 North Market Street. The picture may be a little bit hard to see, but we have a little map that we have here, so people can know, because a lot of people don't know that the Journey to Freedom exhibition in the Mitchell Center is located inside the Delaware History Museum. So a question that a lot of people have is, okay, you're the Mitchell Center for African American Heritage, but who are Jane and Littleton Mitchell? So let's meet the Mitchells. So Jane and Littleton Mitchell Center for African American Heritage honors Jane and Littleton Mitchell, who dedicated their professional lives to ensuring equal rights and opportunities for African Americans and other disenfranchised Delawareans. So Littleton Mitchell was born in Milford, Delaware. He was a civil rights activist. He also was a Tuskegee Airman and an educator. He graduated from Howard High School, which was the only high school where that African Americans in Delaware could attend at the time before desegregation. So he also went to Westchester State College, and he joined the NAACP's Wilmington branch as a teenager, and then he ultimately became the president of the Delaware State branch of the NAACP in 1961, and he served as the president for about 30 years. And during his years there, he led efforts to secure fair housing, equal access to public accommodations, and equal educations and employment opportunities for Delaware's African American community. He was actually the first African American teacher to teach white children at Governor Bacon's Health Center in Delaware City. And Mr. Mitchell, he received numerous awards, including the Westchester University's President's Medallion for Service, the Congressional Medal for Service of the Tuskegee Airmen, and he also received the Delaware State Education Association's Humanities and Civil Rights Award and the Delaware Bar Association's Liberty Bell Award. So Jane Mitchell, who is his wife, also graduated from Howard High School. She graduated from the nursing program there, and later graduated from the University of Delaware in 1963. She earned her master's degree in Washington College in Chestertown, Maryland. She became the first African American registered nurse employed in a hospital in Delaware, and she served as the head nurse at Governor Bacon's Health Center in Delaware City. She also spent the majority of her career at the Delaware State Hospital in Newcastle, where she served as a supervisor of psychiatric services and the director of nursing services. She was also active in NAACP along with her husband, and she also helped in leading efforts to desegregate desegregate Delaware's segregated state hospitals. And fun fact, she was also an artist. She specialized in oil paintings and ceramics. So Jane Mitchell also, she was also the vice president of the Delaware Nursing Association and was the president of the Delaware State Board of Nursing. And she was also a recipient of the University of Delaware's Medal of Merit and inducted into the Alumni Wall of Fame in 1998. And she's also served on the visiting committee of the University of College's Health and Nursing Sciences. Okay. So now that we know a little bit more about the Mitchells, what I want to talk a little bit more about Journey to Freedom, which is our exhibition in the Delaware History Museum. So Journey to Freedom, considers the many paths that African Americans took toward liberation, and Journey to Freedom, which is unfortunately closed to the public due to the ongoing pandemic. If you were there, you would, it uses displays and multimedia technology to capture the stories of the communities of Delaware's African Americans. So the exhibition Journey to Freedom shares an overarching theme of one state, many stories, with a comprehensive Delaware exhibit that it shares with, which is called Discover Delaware. So so it also presents diverse perspectives of African American struggle for human rights, freedom, and dignity in Delaware and in the nation as a whole. And these perspectives are presented with two thematic sections: slavery in Delaware and the struggle for freedom, and the second section, which is beyond bondage, breaking down barriers. With these themes, and within these two themes are subsections, which are specifically labeled by time period and introduce key figures that further defined the African American spirits in Delaware and the African American narrative in Delaware. So I'd like to talk about the first thematic section, which is section 1, slavery in Delaware and the struggle for freedom. So as we see here, the first subsection is 1639, Delaware's original man of mystery. So this section discusses Black Anthony, who was the first documented resident of the Swedish colony in Delaware. So the Swedish were among the first Europeans to settle in Delaware, and Black Anthony, or Anthony Schwartz, he was one of the first Africans in Delaware. And so that section also talks about the development of slavery in Delaware and Delaware and slavery being tied to Delaware's politics and economy. And the next subsection is Am I Not a Man and a Brother in 1776. And this discusses the contradictions between the ideals of the founding era documents and existence of slavery. So how can we have a free country but still have enslaved peoples? And resistance, 1700s to the 1800s, discusses the variety of daily aspects of resistance by enslaved peoples in Delaware. The Black Church, forging faith and community, 1700s to the 1800s, discusses key figures like Peter Spencer, Richard Allen, Absalom Jones, and Samuel Cornish as important leaders in the founding of Black churches as independent organizations in Delaware and elsewhere, including the Free African Society, the Union Church of Africans, and the African Methodist Episcopal Church. And also kind of goes over singing and praying bands, as well as August Quarterly, and as lasting traditions of spiritual identity and expression, which have their roots in the 1900s. Standing together for freedom in the 1840s and 1850s, discuss, development of the abolition movement in Delaware, including, the trials of John Hunn, Thomas Garrett, and Samuel Burris, as the role, and also discussing the role of free Black people in Delaware, and also the roles of the Underground Railroad in Delaware. So I also want to talk about the second thematic section, which is beyond bondage, breaking down barriers. The first subsection is, in pursuit of equality, 1865 through the early 1900s, which talks a lot a bit about 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment amendments of the conclusion of the Civil War, and setting up the debate about, the role of Black Americans during the Reconstruction and reaction to racial violence by white people. Building on the cornerstones of education, 1800s to the present. It goes into the legacy of Howard High School, higher education for African Americans in Delaware, Brown versus Board of Education, and school desegregation. In service of our country, 1917 to 1945, talks about Black Delawareans military service and the contradiction of serving your country at the same time being discriminated against and segregated while serving in the military. Coming together and building community, 1920s to the present, discuss the intimate and collective nature of neighborhood life in for Black Delawareans, and the growth of churches, social clubs, professional clubs, fraternities, and associations as a source of community identity. Civic unrest and leadership, 1950s and the 1960s, documents nonviolent civil rights protests, which were tied to the goals of equal access to jobs, public accommodations, housing, and voting rights, and as well as talking about the occupation of Wilmington by the National Guard and viewed from different perspectives. And we'll go a little bit more into that later in the presentation. And finally, African Americans in the arts, 1910 to present, which really goes into the discussing the Black creativity in art by Delawareans who are known locally, nationally, and internationally, as well as talking about their creativity and music like jazz and swing bands, as well as literature and poetry. And so next, I would like to show some pictures of Journey to Freedom. This is a picture of, in a subjecting of building faith, forging faith, building freedom. And this is another subsection in another picture of that's in the pursuit of equality in education section. And here's just another picture, which is from the subsection of Wilmington 1968 in civic unrest. And so I want to go into Voices of the Elders, which is found in the Journey to Freedom exhibition, but is also part of a larger project from the Mitchell Center. So Voices of the Elders is a series of interviews featuring Reverend Canon Lloyd S. Casson, Dr. Joseph E. Johnson, James H. Gilliam Sr., Estelle Parker Selby, Mayor George Wright Jr., and Dr. Lizelle Deluz. And so I think in the chat, there is a link to the Voices of the Elders videos that you can watch, but I'm going to, in this next slide, I want to show you a clip of of what you can expect for Voices of the Elders. Okay. So let's see.
was born in Dover, Delaware, a sort of depression children. My,
So I wanted to, for this goes, we're not going to watch the all of 40 minutes of it. No, but unfortunately I wasn't able to put captions in the embedded video, but there are captions once you go to YouTube proper and watch the video there. So forgive me for not be able to have captions, because I know it's important to, not everyone can hear.
my parents were very humble people, no big profession or anything like that, and they didn't work out. The family situation just didn't work out. So by the time I was 3 years old, the family had really broken up. Three of us were actually placed in the care of the state of Delaware. We wards the state and became foster children. My brother, twin brother, and I, thankfully, were not separated, which was great. So we were friends all the way through our life together as long as we lived. And in a way, we still are. And another brother, my brother, we left it, went to a foster home. We were in Delaware, another foster home, and another foster home.
Sorry about that.
And eventually, the two of us, Floyd and I, my brother's name is Floyd, that's another thing my mother did to us. And we came to Wilmington. And we ended up with James and Mary Hodges. And our foster parents were smart enough to tell us to call them aunt and uncle. And they made certain that there was some kind of ongoing relationship with my mother. And of course, we would go to Dover about 2 weeks out of every year. Floyd and I would actually go and see our father as well. So we were a family that had some kind of connection, even though we had this breakup early on in our life. I think one of the best things that happened to me, looking back, is becoming a ward of the state and moving from Dover to Wilmington and to live in the city of Wilmington. I won't try to look back and make it sound like it was everything, because it was very difficult going to Wilmington, Delaware, during that time of extreme segregation. On the other hand, I was growing up in a village. Didn't really realize the extent to which our community was so close knit. There were so many support systems that just followed us and supported us and held us up. Church, school, the Y. I could just go on and on and on. And I don't think we thought, hot dog, we live in a village. You know what I mean? It was just an experience. It's just the way it was. It was just wonderful looking back. Other people's parents could discipline you and call you out if you're doing something wrong. The one that sticks in my mind is when I was cutting up somewhere, somebody would stop me and say, "Ain't you Mary's boy?"
Okay. So I'm just going to pause here. And again, these videos are available to see on your on YouTube.
Imagine what that's like.
Okay, let me just go to the next slide. With me here as I try to go back to presenter mode. Okay. Okay, so another series that the Mitchell Center for African American Heritage was involved in was in Wilmington in 1968. So Wilmington 1968 is discussed in Journey to Freedom. However, Wilmington 1968 was also a part of a community-wide reflection that the Mitchell Center for African American Heritage was part of. And so this local series included different projects from like the Delaware Museum of Art and different exhibition programs and different things from different community entities to remember the occupation and the uprising in Wilmington that responded to critical issues that are still facing the community today. And I wanted to share a clip with you from a documentary called A Dream Deferred, Wilmington 1968.
Governor Jerry called in the National Guard to patrol the streets of Wilmington because he perceived, his perception was, he was so troubled in Wilmington that he was again going to be a riot completely all over the place. There would probably be guns.
And that's Littleton Mitchell speaking right now.
Fighting in the streets and shooting. So the guards were brought in to patrol our neighborhoods.
At first, everybody pretty well understood why the National Guard had come in to help the local police because they were just drained. People forget there's only so many policemen. They were working hour after hour after hour, and they needed some supportive help. So, and then there was so much fear.
Most people were glad the Guard was on the streets in the first instance, and probably for a little bit during the summer. That was fine.
The original riot was over pretty quickly, like 2 or 3 days.
So then it turned into this longest occupation in peacetime in any city in the United States, the 9-month occupation.
Governor Terry kept the Guard on the streets for 9.5 months, way beyond what ever's been done before or since in any city in America. A Guard that would patrol through the black neighborhoods. They had 2 convoys, each headed by a state police car, and then a number of jeeps with National Guardsmen and another police car at the end of the convoy, and they go driving through black neighborhoods night after night after night. And so you can imagine, particularly what young kids in those neighborhoods would think.
Okay, so let's go on to the next section. Just bear with me here. My computer is a little slow. Okay. And this is going to be the last part of the last clip that I show for this presentation. And so this is Forging Faith, Building Freedom, African American Faith Experience in Delaware in the 1800s to 1980s. In 1980, so this is also a book and an online exhibit at the Delaware Historical Society. So on our website at dehistory.com, you can go and look through the online exhibit. So that is still available to see. And you can also, there's also a book that that there's also a book on forging faith and building freedom as well that is for sale at the Delaware Historical Society. And I am just going to go to the last clip that I'm going to show. That is let's see, that is from a presentation on forging faith and building freedom. Let's see. And so this is Dr. Lewis V. Baldwin. He's in the Department of Religious Studies at Vanderbilt University, and he's giving an overview of forging faith, building freedom, the African American experience in Delaware. And this was at a talk he did at the Delaware Historical Society in 2013 at the opening of Forging Faith and Building Freedom.
3 points that I want to establish and highlight briefly before getting into the heart of my presentation. And hopefully what I have to say will reinforce and build on these 3 very important points. First, we need to bear in mind that Delaware and Delawareans figured prominently in the rise and development of African American religion and of independent Black churches in the United States. In other words, one cannot talk about Black faith and Black church history in this country apart from a serious consideration of Delaware and Delawareans. Unfortunately, this point has not been taken seriously by historians. The story of Black religion and Black churches in Delaware is crucial, I believe, to not only Delaware history and regional history and Black history, but also to the larger fields of American history, and yes, even world history. My second point is this. We know that this project on Black faith communities was planned largely as a part of the bicentennial celebration of Peter Spencer, African Union Methodism, and the August Quarter. And a special part of the exhibit focuses on this. But we want to make it clear that African American religion and Black church history in Delaware are not about one great leader or a particular church tradition. We have to think in terms of the multi-form character of Black faith and Black churches, which means that we have to give serious consideration to the United Methodists, AMEs, Baptists, and other churches and church traditions that have played such a major role in Delaware history. And we also have to take into account those traditions that are not Christian, such as the Nation of Islam or the Black Muslim movement. And of course, I think the exhibit reflects this broader and more inclusive view of African American faith communities in this particular state. Now, my third point, you will notice that the exhibit highlights 4 figures who were Delawareans and who made significant contributions to Black church origins and development in other parts in the father of African Union, Richard of the AME Church, who organized African Episcopal Church in Philadelphia, and Samuel Cornish, who founded the first Presbyterian church in this country in New York. These 4 figures were pioneers. They were among the original Black church founders. But I will be mentioning the names of numerous other figures, male and female, who loom large in the history of Black religion and Black churches in Delaware.
Okay, so that is the last video clip that I'm showing, that I'm going to show for this presentation. So I want to now segue into our public programs that we have at the Mitchell Center. Okay. So our key series, our largest series that we at the Delaware at the Mitchell Center for African American Heritage is New Directions in African American History. So this series highlights current scholarly research in African American history and the African diaspora, and it reveals the connection of the Black experience in the U.S. and the world, and it also shows the experience how Delaware's Black history is connected to a larger United States history as well. And so we like to bring in not just scholars, but also community leaders, activists, performers, and speakers to engage at these programs and to talk about their work and what they're doing it to Delaware's Black history. So this is just an example of kind of a promotional example of New Directions in African American history. This was a New Directions in August, where we had Dr. Jesse Erickson at the University of Delaware give his presentation on Alice Dunbar Nelson, who is a prominent Delawarean. His research on her reading life. And we also have had other people come and talk, where the picture on the left is Dr. Keto Swan, where he talks about the Black Pacific, and the Pacific being the Black experience in Pacific Islands like Papua New Guinea. And on the right, you can see we had that was a New Directions featuring Dr. Shanti Rosado, and where she was talking about Black Latinas voting rights. Not only do we have New Directions, but we also have annual programs that happen every year. So we have programs for Martin Luther King Day, Harriet Tubman Day, Juneteenth, and this is just a picture of the Harriet Tubman Day program that we had right before the pandemic. It was March of 2020, where we had Millicent Sparks, who portrayed Harriet Tubman. I couldn't get a picture of her performance there because there was no pictures allowed during the performance, unfortunately. But that was I just wanted to show an example of the programs that we have every year, and we also and so we like to change up things, so we don't bring always bring the same person every year, but we always have something for we will always have something for Harriet Tubman Day. And I want to now talk about one of the Mitchell Center's latest projects, which is the Unequal Justice Project. So it's Unequal Justice in Delaware. So Unequal Justice is a multi-year project that was launched in 2019 by the Delaware Historical Society. Delaware Historical Society, the Mitchell Center, in partnership with the University of Delaware, Delaware State University, and the Delaware Social Justice Remembrance Coalition. And this project was launched to really engage the public on the history of racial injustice and inequality against Delaware's African Americans communities, and create a path for healing and uplifting by exploring the ways in which the communities fought injustice and also to encourage community dialogue. And so this was inspired by the National Memorial for Peace and Justice Legacy Museum of the Equal Justice Initiative. And so this, which is still ongoing, this project is still ongoing. The Unequal Justice Initiative had a virtual panel in October. This virtual panel is recorded, so I can share that with you, share the link to the recording with you, so you can watch the recording of this virtual panel of the Unequal Justice Initiative, which is featuring Savannah Shepard, Dr. Yahuwah Williams, Dr. James Jones, and Alana Berry. And so, if any of those things that I just talked about interested you, you could be interested in becoming a member of the Delaware Historical Society. Becoming a member of the Delaware Historical Society can give you lots of different perks. It also supports the Mitchell Center. Being a member it gives you access to the Delaware History Journal, among other things. And also, if you wanted to, you could also follow the Mitchell Center on social media, on Twitter and Facebook. If you follow us on Facebook, we have a really exciting announcement on Wednesday, the 18th of this week. So stay tuned on Wednesday. We have a really exciting announcement that we want to share. I'm really excited about it. It's a project that I've been working on for a while. So stay tuned on 18th. Tune in on 18th on our social media to hear what that project is. So if you want to contact me, my email is kbaker@dvhistory.org. I have my phone number on there, but I won't be able to answer your call because I'm not at the office. But if you do leave a voicemail, I will receive a voicemail because that voicemail goes straight to my email. So I think if anyone has any questions, we can just, that's the end of my presentation. And so we can go to questions if anyone has any. And let me just stop screen sharing.
I have a question if you're ready for questions.
Yes.
Okay, in the things you were working on or in your portfolio, you were trying to get into K through 12 education in the state of Delaware, and I wondered if you'd made any progress there.
So that's a great question. That is something we are working on. I think a better person who could answer that question is Stephanie, Dr. Lampkin. So we have been, things have been interesting with this pandemic. So a lot of things have been, changed around. So at the moment, we're focusing on digital initiatives at this moment to try to still reach the community, like Zoom presentations like this. So, but still maintaining social distancing. But that is something that an ongoing conversation that we're grappling with.
Okay.
Kobe, do you have any related links? Because I started to do kind of the same thing through the George Washington Society, and we were going to have the Red Clay School District's Social Studies Coalition meet here, and of course it got canceled. But I put a lot of Revolutionary War stuff, because that's what we specialize in, on the Hale Burns website. But if you have links you want to send to me, I'll be glad to put them there, because we're slowly working toward having a symposium. Who knows when, after COVID, right? when we're all in nursing homes and old, I guess. But we are working toward that goal, and so we'd like to do that. And Kathy DeSimone, who's on here, is a retired school teacher who was a social studies teacher. So we would be glad to help you network as much as we can. So.
Yes, thank you. I know we've education has been we've hosted teacher workshops. Well, not like the Mitchell Center specifically, but Delaware Historical Society has hosted teachers workshops. So that's something that, and also I would like to, there's definitely links to, I've like tried to I combined like two thoughts in one. So excuse me with that. But yes, there's definitely links that I can give you, and I would appreciate, yeah, I can definitely appreciate any networking you want to provide.
That would be great, because I think it's important. When we were really ramming straight ahead, we actually had Rebecca Fay was working with us, and the education coordinator from Mount Vernon was going to be the keynote speaker. We had it all figured out, so we'll get there. But I would really like you and Sil both to participate when and if we get it up and running.
I have a question.
Yes.
Do you have anything like a virtual tour? I know a lot of museums these days are moving in that direction, and it kind of would give us a taste for where we would have questions and so on. I know that, for example, I did see the movie about Harriet Tubman, and I was so excited that I went and started reading about her life, because I know movies take take poetic license and go off and not necessarily portray the person as they were, or only focus on a certain period of their time. And I did find a number of discrepancies, and then I also found more information about her later life that I thought was equally important. And you can't do everything in a movie. It's there for entertainment. It's not there to teach.
Yes.
So if you had a virtual tour or something, if somebody was interested, they could actually find a legitimate link to find information. I know when I was a teacher, my students thought that Wikipedia was the answer, and I always gave them a 0.
So that is actually, at the moment, we do not have a virtual tour, but that is something that we have been in the talks about, like what would a virtual tour for the Mitchell Center look like? How we implement that? What would be, an accessible way to do that so everyone would be able to see and enjoy it, while still making sure once we're open, people will still come to the Mitchell Center. So that's something we have been trying to figure out. So, that's, me and my supervisor, Dr. Stephanie Lampkin, who is the director of the Mitchell Center. That's something we have been talking about and trying to figure out what would that look like.
Well, the ones I've seen don't show the entire museum. They only show a portion of it, enough to get you to want to come when it's open, etc. They don't show the whole thing. They're not. And sometimes there's even quizzes on there so that students can get involved and make it more interactive, but only like in a section or in the first floor or whatever the case is.
Yeah, and so that's something, we have seen, how other museums have done their virtual tours. And so since this, since we are still ongoing trying to move everything virtually, that's something we have been talking about.
Good.
I'd also like to let you guys know that in the chat, I will, let's see, there are links to the Voices of the Elders videos there. I will also put a link to the journey, that we have a Journey to Freedom video that plays in the Journey to Freedom exhibition, but since no one can allow it in the exhibition, no one can see it. So we put that on YouTube. I'll just get a link for that. So it gives you an overview of, it's a bit different from this than what I give. It gives you an overview of Black Delaware history. And so I will put that in the chat. And let's see. So while I'm doing that, does anyone have any other questions or comments, or if anything, I'll also put my email. Let me put my email in the chat. So, Siri already did it. Thanks, Siri. So, Siri linked to the website so you can go and see Journey to, so you can go and see that. So let me put my email in the chat. So if you have any questions later, you can email me and I will happily answer them.
Oh, there it is.
Okay.
That's good. Kathy D. Simone, can you hear? No, all right. I was hoping that Kathy is still there. She is an award-winning social studies teacher, and she would be a very useful person to meet you, I think. Although she's retired, she's got her fingers in every pie. I think she would like to be a little bit involved in it. So, anybody else? Any questions? No. Well, we'll just have to bring him back. Sil, do you have any more comments or questions?
No, I'm fine. Again, in terms of, I've been working with the an organization in Sussex County that actually has entrees to the schools in Sussex County, and they are beginning to offer its diversity training. Obviously, when you get down to Sussex County, there's a large Latin community, so they have broken that wall. So I will pass on to Kobe their contact information, and if he wants to pass it on to Stephanie or whatever. Again, the high priority for the last 40 years has been getting African-American history into the schools, and we have never been able to figure that out. So I think we need folks who know what other folks are doing, how we might be able to knock that wall down.
Mm-hmm. I think teachers are doing more than you might think. You know, I taught at Deltec for 14 years, and when Kamala was being approached as being vice president, there was a Black kid that I had 14 years ago, now a handsome young man. And every 2 seconds, Ron was sending me a question and I would answer. All night long during this whole hearing, he was there, but he was there because he remembered what he learned at Deltec. So teachers are doing stuff. They're not just sitting on their thumbs. So.
That's good to know.
It's true.
Yes, I.
Go ahead. What happened to your voice?
I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I'm sorry. I had some connectivity issues earlier. So you may or may not have already answered this. But when you guys reopen, do you have programs there designed for like school-age children?
Oh, your voice, you got back.
When we're open, we usually have, when we're open,
okay.
When we were open, we have we usually have field trips, and we also have other education programs designed for students that would come. Like we have a lot of education programs designed for children that I can give you like. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna give everyone a digital brochure in this for the Mitchell Center, and as well as I can give you a link to our educational programs and resources.
Okay.
That we have.
Have you made like learning pods or anything for like home educators?
We actually have enrichment packets that we have that are printable PDFs that you can interact with, but we don't have anything like a learning podcast or anything. But we have enrichment packets.
Okay.
Is there a link to that, Cody?
Yes, there is.
That would be good.
Yes, let me. that for you. And let's see who's going to do that. Okay, let's see. That's not it. There we go. I think here we go. Oh, Siri beat me to it. Okay, so we have Siri put in the chat that and also I'll send a follow-up email with all the links in this chat and with more helpful links as well. So you don't have to like rush to copy anything down. So
one of the problems that we've discovered is that a lot of the schools were no longer able to afford field trips. The buses had to be in certain time slots, and they got expensive, and insurance. And then they started to charge for lunch instead of letting kids bring a sandwich bag from home and things like that. And even winter tour. So it's not just small places. I went over there to talk to Lois, who's the head of the educational programs at Winter Tour, and she was really interested in what we were trying to do with educators, because she said her kids go to public school and they got to take a field trip to the 76ers and their new building over behind the train station, but they didn't come to Winter Tour. So it's a national problem just at the moment. It's not like when I grew up in the boondocks north of Binghamton, we went on field trips every minute because they thought just because we were country kids didn't mean we shouldn't be out seeing things and touching things. So the world has changed, but it's a lot of it is insurance. So the more we can put links out there, get kids to come. I'm a real Montessori mother. I think kids need to touch and hold and see things and smell it and taste it if they will. So I'm really hoping that we can pull together this program that we were thinking about 2 years ago already. So we'll be working on it. We'll be back. So any other questions for Kobe or anything? All right. Thank you so much. You did a great job, and we'll be back. And I hope you'll come over here too. Daniel Burns actually was one of the first abolitionists, so you should come. Thank you, Siri. Yeah.
Thank you guys for bearing with me with that presentation. It was the first time I had to do this virtually, so there's some little kinks that I still need to work out. So thank you for your patience with that, and look out for a follow-up email with all of these links in the chat. And so, and also, so I think that's about it. Just look out for a follow-up email.
Is it okay if I put those links on the Hale Burns website with credit to you?
Yeah, sure. We can, yeah, that definitely. So the Voices of the Elders videos, those aren't on our YouTube page. Those are on a different YouTube page, okay, with a partner who helped create the Voices of the Elder videos. But the links with that have DHS on them, those are
we could put on there. Okay, yes. I will. Thank you very much. Thanks everybody for tuning in. And
thank you, everyone.
We don't have our programs on Zoom yet for December, but they're coming. So those will be the first weekend in December. So thank you everybody very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, you did a great job. Thank you, Siri.
Okay, yes, thank you so much, Siri. Okay, so I'm just gonna.
We'll let you turn it.